Hey everyone, and welcome to the Fallout Show. My name is Eric. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about the second episode of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. This one was obviously going to be not as big as the premiere episode because the WWE put a lot more into that and they made it almost like another PLE. This episode of Raw was more like what we will be seeing every week. And I thought they did some good things and not so good things. So I'll let you know my overall grade at the end of the video. Let me know what you thought of the show in the comments below. And for this episode of the Fallout Show, we will have a very special guest later. Steve Shives will be joining me, and we'll be talking about the main event of the show together. So first, let's talk about CM Punk, who kicked off the show by having a promo talking about being done with Seth Rollins after the match last week, and then he was interrupted by Seth Rollins and later Drew McIntyre. I thought it was pretty funny when CM Punk said, why can't it ever be Rhea Ripley that interrupts me? It's always got to be Seth Rollins or somebody like that. But I kind of had the feeling after last week that rivalry was not over. And I made a comment about a possible future for this scenario, and I think it's still online. So even with, everybody saying they're going to be in the Royal Rumble, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, I don't even think that's where this rivalry is going to end. It really seems to me like the WWE is positioning either a four-way title match or a tag match. And the tag match, I'm thinking, would be CM Punk with Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. And the reason I think that is because of that favor that Paul Heyman owes CM Punk. What happened, a few months ago when CM Punk agreed to help Roman Reigns. So that has to mean something. And I really do think that is going to lead to CM Punk asking Paul Heyman for Roman Reigns to help him. And it looks like Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, even though I think they're going to fight at Saturday night's main event, or maybe Raw next week. I can't remember right now, but I think that a match has been booked between those two. I think eventually they're going to team up just to get at CM Punk and Roman Reigns at the same time. Or this could be moving towards a four-way title match, which maybe makes a little more sense between Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk for the WWE title. It looks like that's where this is going because even though Roman Reigns is not like showing up on these shows, he's being talked about by Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk pretty much every time they have a mic. So something's going to happen there with all four of these guys, and I really think that that's where this is going. So I don't believe that any of these four are going to win the Royal Rumble. I think that eventually they're going to have, probably at another PLE, the main event will be those four. I don't think it'll be WrestleMania, although that would be a really good WrestleMania title match, those four fighting it out. But usually title matches at WrestleMania are one-on-one. But we'll see. But I do think eventually we're either going to see a tag match or we're going to see those four together. But let me know, what would you think of that? Would you rather see a tag match, or would you rather see Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk versus Roman Reigns for the world title? Of course, one of them would have to win the world title first. They'd have to get it off Cody Rhodes, but which I do think is going to happen eventually. Cody Rhodes is already going to have it for about a year. I don't think that he's going to have it forever. I definitely think that CM Punk is going to take the title from Cody Rhodes in the near future. I could be wrong, but it just seems that like CM Punk is so over right now. I think that he has kind of risen above Cody Rhodes as far as who's over with the fans. And CM Punk now has that story of, he came to the WWE, he was injured, he was out, now he's back and he's kind of knocking off all these big names. I think eventually it's going to be him versus Cody Rhodes. But let me know, what do you think is going to happen between those four guys? So next we had the first match of the evening, and it was amazing. It was the debut of Penta, and he took on Chad Gable. If you're not familiar with Penta, he's had a few names. He went by Pentagon. He's mostly known as Penta Zero Muerto. I'm probably pronouncing that really bad. I apologize. And I believe that translates to zero fear of death. Anybody who can speak Spanish and educate me, please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But I believe that that's what his name means, that he has zero fear of death, and that's why he's got the zero everywhere. He also has a brother named Ray Phoenix, who's currently signed to AEW. A little bit of a weird situation there because I believe Penta and Ray signed with AEW together as a tag team, but Ray got hurt and they added, I think, 3 months of injury time onto his contract. So he's still in AEW. He might come to WWE eventually, but now we have Penta, and he was really over. I mean, it was really smart for the WWE to debut him in San Jose because Penta is mostly well known for Lucha Underground. He was last with AEW, but mostly he's known for Lucha Libre stuff in Mexico and Southern California. So he was going to be most over in San Jose for his debut. The fans obviously knew about him, and they performed great. I think there were a couple botches in the beginning. I think Penta was a little nervous, and I think that you can understand that if you're a human being. I mean, playing on that stage and having to perform is something that I can't even fathom. So to hit every move correctly and to be that nervous has got to be near impossible. But I think that Chad Gable did a great job against him. Both wrestlers not only did their moves well, but they really sold the other guy's moves really well. I know when Penta hit that Mexican Destroyer, which used to be a Canadian Destroyer, but now I guess when Penta does it, it's a Mexican Destroyer on Chad Gable. Chad Gable sold that like it was a sniper shot. Like his arms went limp. Like he was out, and I thought he was out there, but obviously he kicked out until he got hit with the Penta driver, which Penta has been using for a while. But I thought it was great. I thought the promo at the end was great, that he got to speak in Spanish. His family was there. His daughter was crying. I mean, what's there not to like? It was a great match. Once again, Chad Gable's on the short end of the stick. It always seems like he's getting over other people. His paycheck, it's not affected if he wins or loses. So Chad Gable is doing a great job doing what he does. I would like to see American Made, do something, win something. I really like this like American Gladiators retro thing they have going on. I hope they do something at Saturday Night's Main Event because they seem like a faction that is made for Saturday Night's Main Event just because it's all about nostalgia. I like the Creed brothers. I haven't seen them wrestle in a while. Ivy Nile is an interesting kind of developmental wrestler because she came from like American Ninja Warrior or something like that, some reality show, and then the NXT signed her, and she's been learning wrestling the past couple of years. With some, I think that she's had some good matches. I know she had a match with Rhea Ripley that wasn't that great. So, but I would like to see her get another chance and see American Made do more stuff. As far as Penta goes, I think the sky is the limit. He's obviously going to do something with Rey Mysterio. If you want to, you can actually find a really good match between Rey Mysterio and Penta from about 10 years ago in one of the Lucha promotions. It's a really good match, and that was 10 years ago, so you can imagine where Penta is now. And I thought Penta looked like he was in the best shape I've ever seen him in too. So I love that when wrestlers, sign the WWE and they really step it up, and you can tell, just with their physical appearance that they're, they're putting the work in. So I think the sky's the limit for Penta. I almost wanted to see him like join the Wyatt Six. I thought that would have been cool, but then we found out that the Wyatt Six are now on SmackDown. Another faction that seems to be doing nothing that really should be doing something. But, the sky's the limit for Penta. I can't wait to see who they pair him up with. I think Carmelo Hayes, somebody like that, would be a great match for him. Andrade, I think, would be another good one. But we'll see. The sky's the limit. I could see Penta going for a belt here within the next 12 months. I think that he's that much over. He's got that experience. He's that new. And I'm really excited to see what happens with him. Then next, we got the match between Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser. These two guys, I think, are just good wrestling buddies. You just see these, sometimes you have these competitors that it just seems like they're well matched for each other, and every time they put on a match, it's just like dancing. It just really comes off great. And Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser put on a real banger. To quote Sheamus, I thought that it was obvious kind of that Sheamus was going to win this one. The background for this was that these two fought Braun Breaker in a 3-man match for the IC title, and it looked like Sheamus had beaten Breaker, but Ludwig Kaiser pulled him out at the last second, and then Breaker ended up winning the match. And so now they did this, I guess, number one contenders match for the IC title, and the winner was going to face Braun Breaker, I believe, on Saturday Night's Main Event in a couple of weeks. So I thought it was a really good match. Like I said, I mean, no big surprises. I think both are very good at what they do. I think Ludwig Kaiser is probably one of the more underrated wrestlers on the WWE roster right now. Sorry about that. I think much like Gunther, he's such a good heel. He's so old school. I love that, he's like so ripped, and he's like making fun of Sheamus's, I don't even know if I'd call it a belly, but I mean, he's not as ripped as Ludwig Kaiser, but still Sheamus is, I think, upper 30s, early 40s, coming out the ring in his underwear. I think, I think we should be easy on Sheamus. I mean, it was funny when Drew McIntyre said, it used to be banger after banger after banger, but now it's burger after burger after burger. That was funny, but I think Sheamus was even honest about that said that he didn't know he was going to be back as quickly as he was. And then they just said, like, you're back next week. And he's like, really, I am? And so he had to start, getting more in shape and stuff like that. So I'll forgive Sheamus, but I thought it was a great match. I thought the ending was really cool too, with Braun Breaker, doing the stare down with Sheamus after he won the match. But all in all, it was a pretty good match. It wasn't the best match of the night. It definitely wasn't the worst match of the night. But I think that both are very good at what they do. Ludwig Kaiser, I would like to see him put on some kind of program where he's on TV more. I think that, again, he is underutilized, and he could, he's still got some years left. I think that he could be in a couple of good matches and at good rivalries and stuff like that. I think that for Sheamus, he's at a point in his career where he's just putting over younger talent, and that's fine. Again, just like Chad Gable, Sheamus's paycheck doesn't change whether he wins or loses. So I think that, he's going to face Braun Breaker. I don't think there's any chance that he beats Braun Breaker. This storyline that, the Intercontinental Championship is the one title that Sheamus hasn't held in the WWE. It's good for the storyline, but I don't think it really means anything. And I think that they're going to build up Braun Breaker for a while and have him with the IC title for a while. I was really surprised that in his first run that he lost it as quickly as he did, but then, of course, he got it right back. So I think that, it'll be a good match between Sheamus and Braun Breaker, but I don't think there's any chance in the world that Sheamus is going to win that. And again, with Ludwig Kaiser, maybe start a program with Ludwig Kaiser and Penta. I think that would work out well. They're very, very different. Ludwig, could definitely make fun of a lot of things about Penta, and Penta can make fun of a lot of things about Ludwig. So I think that could be a good rivalry right there, but we'll see. But again, what we know is that we will see Sheamus versus Braun Breaker for the IC title. Should be a good match, but I don't think there's any question about who's going to come out the winner. Next, we saw the Judgment Day backstage, and there's obviously still some problems there. But what I found interesting is what was happening in the background. If you notice, there's always like a video game, whatever the WWE 2K game that's out, they're always playing it in the Judgment Day Clubhouse. This week, though, I think they may have been playing the new, yet-to-be-released WWE 2K25. They've been teasing that we're going to see something on January 27th or January 28th of 2025 about the next game. Usually it comes out around WrestleMania, so it makes sense that they're going to start doing the promo for it around the Royal Rumble, which is when they start, the WWE starts promoting WrestleMania hardcore. So I think that we might have seen the first gameplay from WWE 2K25 in that segment. I can't really tell. I do have 2K24, but the graphics looked a little bit different to me. Honestly, I don't play as Dom Mysterio very much, so I don't know exactly what he looks like in the game. I know I faced him before, but I just don't know exactly what he wears and stuff like that. But I think that could have been the first footage of 2K25, but I guess we'll see when we see the first real footage in a couple of weeks. As far as the Judgment Day, we may see Liv Morgan leave the Judgment Day. It seems like her and Dom might be on the outs. I really hope this doesn't lead them back to Rhea Ripley. I said this last week that I want Rhea Ripley to fight somebody else besides Liv Morgan, somebody that looks like they could actually beat them. And it looks like that's happening too from the segment that we saw later in the show. So we'll see what happens with Liv Morgan and Dom, but I don't really care that much about the Judgment Day. I think Finn Balor is a great wrestler. He put on a great match tonight that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I think that JD McDonough is pretty good too. I'd like to see, if Finn Balor is not going to go for a title, I'd like to see him and JD McDonough continue on as the Judgment Day tag team. I think that works really well, and it gets them both on TV. So I hope that keeps going. But we'll see. As far as Liv Morgan goes, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with her. There's plenty of people that she can fight, but they may have her just kind of rebuild herself and have some mid-card matches for a while before she goes for a title fight again. But yeah, I thought this segment was all right. The most interesting to me was not what anybody was saying. Honestly, it was what was going on in the background and probably seeing the first images of 2K25. But let me know, did you notice that too? Do you play 2K24? Let me know in the comments. Then we had a short segment with Karrion Kross and The Miz. Karrion Kross is another guy I think could do a lot with something. I don't think they ever give Karrion Kross anything to really go with, but it seems like he's really talented in the ring. He's talented on the mic. He's got this like cult leader thing kind of going for him. I just don't know why the WWE can't really find a storyline for him to really latch onto. I thought that the Final Testament versus the Wyatt Six was going to be that. That made a lot of sense to me, two kind of factions that are on the dark side. But then we learn in this episode of Raw that the Wyatt Six have been moved to SmackDown, so that means that Karrion Kross won't be going against them anytime soon. I think eventually you're going to see Karrion Kross versus The Miz. The Miz is, I don't really care about The Miz anymore. I never really liked The Miz. I understand that he's done a lot for the WWE over the past 20 years. He's a great ambassador for the brand. I get all that. But as far as like somebody I want to see show up on Raw, he's not it. This could mean that Karrion Kross will fight The Miz maybe on Raw in a couple of weeks or something like that. And then that'll be over. But from this interaction, Sami Zayn comes up, and then somehow, bing, bang, boom, Sami Zayn and The Miz have a match tonight. A couple of weird things about this. First of all, I think the production actually ruined this surprise. I know that about half hour or maybe 45 minutes before this segment, they showed a match card, like a graphic on the show, and it showed Sami Zayn versus The Miz. So I know that this isn't supposed to happen in real time or whatever, but it was a little weird to see that. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember that being announced. And then 45 minutes later, you see the segment. So that was just maybe a little mix up with the graphics or whatever. But that was kind of spoiled for anybody that was really watching the show. So and I don't really understand why they added that match either. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk about the match. But this was probably one of the more boring segments. It reminded me of how, Karrion Kross never gets anything good. And, hopefully he does. I mean, I would even see him move back down to NXT and start a cult there or something, just so he's on TV so he can show his mic skills. Because he's really good on the mic and he's good in the ring. But he just never seems to get anything. But we'll see what happens with Karrion Kross. But yeah, there wasn't much of substance there in that segment. Then we get an appearance by the champion of Monday Night Raw, Gunther, who I mentioned it was weird that he did not show up in person on the show last week when it was supposed to be such a big show. You don't even really have your champion on. Some people are saying that the Hulk Hogan segment took the time of a segment that Gunther was supposed to have. But I've heard all kinds of rumors. Like they've also said that Hulk Hogan segment took the place of Penta's debut, which I think that would have been a mistake to put Penta's debut last week. I think it was very smart to do it this week because it stands out more. But I don't know if that's true. I think maybe people are just blaming stuff on Hogan because obviously he had a very bad reception last week on Raw and probably won't be showing up on Raw anytime soon. But we do get an appearance from Gunther, and he's saying Gunther things. He's the best, and it's hard to argue with him. I mean, he is the best heel in all of wrestling right now. He's great in the ring. I really like Gunther. I think that the WWE has built him up great. He's really like this generation's Goldberg, if you think about it. Goldberg was the quintessential face. All he does is, destroy people. Goldberg was kind of the I guess the evolution of the Ultimate Warrior character, where somebody would just come in and just destroy people while the fans went nuts. And I think that now, like, Gunther is kind of doing that, but as a heel. He just, destroys whoever he goes against, and he talks down to all of them, and he's got, all the aura in the world. And I think that he's just like the archetype of the great heel of wrestling. And he's doing it, using a lot of tactics that people have been doing for years, and he's bringing new stuff to the game too. And I think that he's just really great, and he's one of my favorite wrestlers in all of wrestling right now. And to have him, face off against Jey Uso is so smart. I don't think that Jey Uso has a chance in winning the belt, but Jey Uso is so over as a face. You're almost putting your best face versus your best heel when you put Jey Uso and Gunther against each other at Saturday Night's Main Event in a couple of weeks. So I think this is so smart. I think that, like the other title match I talked about, the match with Braun Breaker, I don't think that there's a chance that Gunther's going to lose the title to Jey Uso, but the match is going to be great. Both of them bring it, and they're both so over. The crowd is going to go nuts with everything they do. It'll give them one more week to talk trash to each other, which I think they will do next week, and maybe have, a confrontation in the ring. But I thought this was probably one of my favorite non-wrestling segments of the night, maybe my favorite. Just because, Jey Uso wears his heart on the sleeve, and he's and the crowd is into that. They understand that, and they're with they're with him, and they understand Gunther too as this great heel, and they appreciate that. So it was just great. It was wrestling magic having those two, kind of face off against each other. And I think it's going to be a great match. But like I said, there's no chance that Gunther's going to lose, but I still think it's going to be a great match and another stepping stone for Jey Uso. Jey Uso is so over, he doesn't need a belt. I don't think that Jey Uso needs success to be popular. Eventually that's going to go away. I mean, he can't keep losing and still be popular. But right now, these are two of the most popular stars in the WWE, and it's very smart to put them against each other. And I think it'll be a great match. So I'm very much looking forward to their match at Saturday Night's Main Event. But let me know, what do you think? Do you think that Jey Uso has a chance against Gunther? I don't, but I think that it'll be a great match nonetheless. And then we get the debut of the Women's Intercontinental Championship with the match between Lyra Valkyria and Dakota Kai. The background for this was there was a tournament held to get the number one contender, so to speak, for this, with Dakota Kai winning her bracket, and Lyra Valkyria actually beat Io Sky in her semifinal match. I was sort of surprised. It wasn't surprising because Dakota Kai won her match first, and I really doubted that they were going to have two members of Damage Control go against each other with Io Sky and Dakota Kai. But Io Sky is one of my favorite wrestlers in all of wrestling, not just WWE. So to have Lyra Valkyria beat her, it was a little bit of a shock. But, it's obvious they're trying to push Lyra Valkyria. She had a very good run in NXT as a champ. I mean, Dakota Kai had a good run in NXT in her own right. But it does seem like they're pushing Lyra Valkyria on Raw. She's won a couple of big matches since her debut last year, and it seems like her momentum is continuing. I like her aesthetic, the wings and stuff. I think that she looks cool when she's out there. But I worry about the legitimacy of the Women's Intercontinental title with her in the belt, because I don't see her as one of the top. Like, if I was going to make a list of the top 10 women in the WWE right now, that's Raw, SmackDown, even NXT, Lyra Valkyria and Dakota Kai would not be on that list. And it's not because they're necessarily bad wrestlers. It's just that WWE has an embarrassment of riches in their women's division. I mean, there are women in NXT, their developmental brand right now, that would be stars in any other promotion that's not the WWE, just because they're so over and they're so good at what they do. So, to be the best in the WWE is really saying something. And then, of course, you've got Jade Cargill and Charlotte Flair, who are not even wrestling right now, who are, of course, in the top 10. So really, there's 8 active wrestlers right now that are in the top 10, and to make your way into that list, it's pretty hard. And right now, I don't know that Lyra Valkyria is the kind of star that can elevate this belt. And that's what you always want to do with a belt. You don't want to just put it on somebody to legitimize them. Then you have like a Logan Paul situation. But if you look at SmackDown, they gave the belt to Chelsea Green, and that was really smart because Chelsea Green, great in the ring, great on the mic, is a great self-promoter, and she's already doing stuff with the U.S. title and bringing awareness to it, and that's really, I think she hasn't even defended it yet. I think she just won it. So I just can't see that kind of thing from Lyra Valkyria. I can see her kind of getting lost in the shuffle. As far as Dakota Kai goes, I think this is a really good match. Dakota Kai and Lyra Valkyria, there are a couple botches, but again, their nerves had to be crazy. I think, especially with Dakota Kai, before the match, it almost looked like she was going to have a panic attack. I mean, she was really feeling the crowd, and she really appreciated the event. But I think that Dakota Kai is a very talented wrestler, but I really liked her in her managerial role that she did with Damage Control, because I think that she's she's great on the mic. She is good in the ring, but I just, when you look at Damage Control, out of those 4 wrestlers, she's probably the 4th best, and when you're talking about the faction that you're in, to be the worst one out of, and when I mean worse, I don't mean bad. I just mean when you talk about like over with the crowd, in-ring performance, performance on the mic, I think that Dakota Kai is behind Kairi Sane, Io Sky, and Asuka. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to know. But I think it's very hard for Dakota Kai to make an impact in the ring because of that. So maybe her role is best as a manager, because I think she does a really good job as that as well. And she can interfere in matches from time to time, or, take on a tag team, run or something like that as part of Damage Control. So I think that's probably where Dakota Kai is best right now. So we'll see what happens with both of these wrestlers. I think for Lyra Valkyria, they're going to have to give her something right away. They're going to have to give her some kind of rivalry. And I don't know that Dakota Kai is it, because even after the match, they were very friendly with each other, which is weird because Damage Control were heels for a long time, and then it seems like now they're faces. So if they're faces, I don't see them really going into a feud with Lyra Valkyria either. So we'll see what happens, but I wish Lyra Valkyria all the best. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that she takes the IC belt for the women and makes it something special. But I have my doubts right now, so we'll see. What I envision happening is that I think someone is going to come up from NXT and take the belt from Lyra, and that they're going to have a rivalry, because I think that makes the most sense. Lyra Valkyria was just in NXT, so her losing to somebody from NXT is not so crazy. There's a lot of talent in NXT. Jada Parker, Lola Vice, Roxanne Perez. There's a lot of women that could come up and start on day one on the main roster. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think Lyra is going to have the belt for a very short period of time. Whoever they're going to move up from NXT is going to be the one that kind of defines that belt. But I could be wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And next we had the match between Sami Zayn and The Miz. The background for this match is that there really was no background. They had a segment earlier in the match, or they had a segment earlier in the night, and they just led to a match somehow between Sami Zayn and The Miz, and the match really kind of played out like that. This match felt like a filler. It didn't really feel like it did anything for either wrestler's career, or it didn't have anything to do with any storyline. Maybe this will lead, like I said, to a match between Karrion Kross and The Miz down the road. But I really don't care about The Miz. This was a squash match. I mean, I was watching the match and I leaned down to, pet my dog behind the ears. And I look up and Sami Zayn's giving a hell of a kick. To The Miz and hitting him with the Blue Thunder Bomb. So, it was a quick match. There was some kind of chatter online that people were upset with Penta because he went over on his segment, But this match seemed like a filler. So I don't know if Penta went over, they could have made this a dark match. I mean, like there was no point in this match. There weren't even really any big pops. The Miz didn't do anything. He just looks over the hill. I think he's better as a brand ambassador. Maybe he could be a general manager. Although Adam Pearce is doing a great job right now, so I don't see The Miz taking over as the GM of Raw anytime soon. But, again, this was a match that it was just a filler match. I was kind of disappointed in it. And it was really kind of a bummer. It kind of like stopped the show dead a little bit. Luckily, it was a quick match, but this match did not need to happen. It could have been a dark match, and it was really surprising that they decided to do this. I really would love to know why they did this match, especially if they said that Penta went long. I mean, I know it's a live show it's hard to make those decisions on the fly, but I really don't understand why this match had to happen, and it's probably not going to lead to anything in the future. Next, we had a very interesting segment with Rhea Bloody Ripley, where she reminded everybody, what happened last week and that she's done with Liv Morgan. And then just on cue, we had Nia Jax showing up. We had Bayley showing up saying, that they are also, have their eyes on the women's championship. And although Bayley did help Rhea Ripley, you could tell, she was either looking at Rhea Ripley's butt or she was looking at the belt. It was kind of hard to tell. But at the end of the segment, when Nia Jax was knocked out of the ring, if you look back, Bayley's looking at something. I don't know what she's looking at, but the fact that Nia Jax and Bayley are both from SmackDown and they're challenging Rhea Ripley, I think it's kind of a surprise. Because Tiffany Stratton, she's 25, she's a rookie, she just won the belt, and they're saying no, we're gonna go to Raw and we're gonna attack Rhea Ripley, who's had the belt for multiple times now, and is Rhea Ripley. I think if I had a choice between fighting Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton for a belt, I'd probably go after Tiffany Stratton just based on experience and, her, Rhea Ripley's imposing figure and what she can do in the ring. But I guess Nia Jax was hearing none of that, and she wants a piece of Rhea Ripley. I think that's surprising. I am still waiting for Charlotte Flair to show up. Maybe the fact that Bayley and Nia Jax look to both be moving to Raw, maybe this is a sign that either Charlotte Flair is going to SmackDown, or that Jade Cargill is coming back and starting a feud with Bianca Belair, which will lead to them going for the title. I think that is definitely in the cards as soon as Jade Cargill comes back, because Bianca Belair, really, they shouldn't have the women's tag team title belts. Those should go to like an actual women's tag team like Dawn and Fire. I really like them. I'd like to see them get the belts back. But I really don't. It really doesn't make sense to have the belts on. Right now, I think it's Naomi and Bianca Belair. But I do see Jade Cargill coming back and, starting a feud with Naomi and Bianca Belair, and then going after Tiffany Stratton. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting how they're shaking this up a little bit. Maybe this is the fact that they move, Bayley and Nia Jax, two of the biggest stars on SmackDown, to Raw. It's got to mean somebody's coming back and they're going to be on SmackDown to kind of fill that void. And in my opinion, it has to be Jade Cargill or Charlotte Flair. But let me know, what do you think? Do you think it was smart for Nia Jax and Bayley to challenge Rhea Ripley? Well, I guess Bayley didn't really challenge Rhea Ripley outright, but it's obvious that she's got her eyes on the title belt. Do you think they should have stayed on SmackDown, or do you believe, like I do, that somebody big is coming back to SmackDown, and that's why they had to move Bayley and Nia Jax to Raw? Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, so now to talk about the main event from last night's Raw, I have a very special guest, Steve Shives from YouTube. He has had a channel for many years. I've been a fan, and I am very happy to have him join us today. Thank you for joining us, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to get to talk about pro wrestling.
Awesome. If you're not familiar with Steve, he talks about Star Trek, he talks about politics, and sometimes he talks about wrestling too. So you should definitely check out his channel. I will put a link to it in the comments below. But today we're talking about WWE Raw, and specifically the main event. So we had a street fight between two former brothers, two former faction members in the Judgment Day with Finn Balor and Damian Priest. I thought it was a pretty good match. Steve, what did you think?
It was all right. It's one of those matches where I mean, I really like both guys. I really like Finn Balor and I really like Damian Priest. I'm just generally not a fan of like street fight, hardcore, anything goes matches. And this is one where, like, if I didn't know that I was going to talk to you about it, I probably would have just fast forwarded to the end just to see the finish and just to see who won. Because, like, there's a certain point where my eyes just kind of glaze over and I'm like, all right, go ahead, set up the table. I mean, you know what I mean? And like, they did some of the stuff, like they kind of got me interested when they were doing the fight through the crowd. And then they did up, oh, you know, they were up on the railing and they did the bump through the tables. And then they did like Finn doing a stretcher job, except then he didn't do a stretcher job, like, and the match just kept going. And I was like, the ref hasn't called this match yet. One of the guys is being stretchered out and the ref hasn't called for the bell. So like, that felt like overkill. You know, but I mean, for what it wasn't terrible. It was nice to see Damian win. Hopefully this is sort of them like putting a period on that. And now they're both going to go off and do other things, because it feels like they've been just kind of chasing each other for so long. And it's like, all right, this was the big blow off. They finally settled their issue. Damian won. Now let's hopefully find something interesting for him to do and find something else for Finn to do, because like I said, I really like both guys, but it's like, all right, they've been feuding forever. This was their big street fight blow off. Let's let them go off and do other stuff now. Okay. You know?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with most of what you said. I'm not as adverse to hardcore matches. I'm an old ECW guy, so I remember,
Sure.
you know, much crazier stuff happening on screen than what we'll ever see on WWE. So, but I agree, you know, seeing Finn Balor on the stretcher, I was like, is this kayfabe? Is this really happening? Because it's live. And I guess that's kind of the draw of having the live show.
Yeah.
And then to have like Damian Priest just be like, nah, he's not getting off that easy. And then go after him. And I was like, well, I guess they're not worried about PG on Netflix anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it kind of like, I was thinking, I mean, eventually I think when the rest of Judgment Day ran in and attacked Damian, they kind of brought it back. But at first, when Damian like grabs him off the stretcher, and I did like I like the little spot they did where like he unbuckles him and he shoves the stretcher into the ring, and Finn just rolls straight into the ring off the stretcher, off of the impact. I thought that was neat, but like, I thought, man, Damian's starting to come across as kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, this guy is literally like, they were taking him out on a stretcher. Like he was done. Like they were going to put him in an ambulance and take him away. And Damian, the baby face, is like, no, I think I'm going to kill this guy who can no longer defend himself. And like, they brought it back because there was the outside interference, and Finn was able to magically shrug off his injury. But, you know, so Damian didn't finish the match feeling like a bully, but they were getting to that point where I'm like, man, I mean, I know he hates this guy and all, but like, is he just going to kill him?
Yeah.
You know?
I thought that was really interesting. Like once he pulled him off the stretcher, and like you said, like he just took off the neck brace, and all of a sudden, you know, he can do the coup, you know?
Yeah. He's like, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Yeah. And I do think that the style of match kind of works with Damian Priest's style. You know, I don't think everybody can pull off a hardcore match, which is basically what this was. But you know, Damian Priest has that martial arts kind of like background style that I think kind of lends itself to more punching and kicking than, you know, if Rey Mysterio or somebody else, you know, that's known for technical wrestling, they're kind of wasted in a match like this. But I'm like you, I hope that this does allow, you know, Damian Priest to maybe go after the title now. And I would like to see Finn Balor and JD McDonough do more with Judgment Day just as a tag team. I think I like them together. And Finn Balor's probably not going to get another title run. The best he can hope for singles-wise is probably just putting over younger talent. So, you know, I think that maybe as a tag team, they're best. But, not my favorite match of the night. Just what was your favorite match of the night?
I was thinking about that after I watched it, because I thought we might talk about it. I thought Sammy versus Miz was all right.
Really?
I thought, Yeah, I mean, I wasn't great, but I thought I liked the finish. I liked the way they reversed the finish. So Sammy actually pinned him
Oh
with the
yeah.
Blue Thunder Bomb. You know,
Uh-huh.
he did he did the haluva kick for, and it was like, oh, he beat him with the move that he never beats anybody with, but they justify it
Right.
because he hit him with his finish right before, and then he was like, screw it, I'll just do this too, you know. So
Yeah.
it made sense, but and I mean, Sheamus and Ludwig was good, but they've wrestled each other so many
Yeah.
times. It's like, you know, it's always a good match, but it's like, how many more times are we going to watch them wrestle at this
Yeah.
point?
I
You
kind of
know,
mentioned that
over
in my
such a
review of it too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but it wasn't bad, and um I'm glad Lyra won the Intercontinental title. That was the result I was hoping for. The match itself was okay. There were a couple of spots in there where it seemed like they were overthinking things. Like there was that bit where at one point it looked like Lyra had powered her up to do a power bomb, and then she reverses it into like a Hurricane Rana type of thing, but her knees were in Lyra's chest, so it didn't really look like a Hurricane Rana. And I was like, they're really making this too complicated. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to
Put out
do
all
too
stops.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was glad that Lyra won, because she's like she reminds me of like the kind of wrestlers that used to win like the men's Intercontinental title in, like, you know, the 80s and the 90s when I was first becoming a big fan, because it was the Intercontinental title was like the stepping stone title, where it was, you know, the usually, especially if it was a baby face, it was usually a younger wrestler, or at least a wrestler who was perceived as younger or newer by the fans, and it was their first singles title, and they were usually like, you know, a decent sort of pure baby face, you know, like Ricky Steamboat or Bret Hart. And you know, and it was like the stepping stone title. It was like, oh, you know, and not in Ricky's case, but in Bret's case, it was like, you know, he wins the Intercontinental title and he establishes himself as a singles guy, you know, after the tag team run. And, you know, and so I kind of like the Intercontinental title being that belt, being like the first big milestone for a singles wrestler on their rise. And I don't know if they see that. I mean, I imagine they see something like that with Lyra, because otherwise they wouldn't have, you know, called her up from NXT. But yeah, so I liked her winning the title, and the match was all right.
With, you know, especially since Chelsea Green just got the U.S. title, they're probably going to be like tied together as long as both of them still have the belts, because they're the inaugural champions for both belts. And I think Chelsea Green, does she even have a defense? Maybe she's got one defense, but I think she's making that belt pretty visible. So we'll see if Lyra can do the same thing. My favorite match was probably the Penta match, the Penta Chad Gable match.
Yeah,
I loved I loved the ending. I mean, it was really brutal, like Chad Gable taking all those hits. I loved how they both sold each other's moves. I think that I mentioned earlier in my podcast that when Chad Gable took that Canadian destroyer, which is now the Mexican destroyer.
the Mexican destroyer.
He took that like a sniper shot. Like his arms just went limp. Like, he really took that. So
I tell you what, I liked that match. There were a couple of points about it that, like, I thought it went on a little too long, especially for Penta's debut. I mean, and having him, obviously you want Penta to go over. It's his first night in the company, and you know they're wanting to sort of present him as like, this was a big free agent, he's a big deal, and now he's here, and you know, you're not going to have him lose. As much as I love Chad Gable, you're not going to have him lose to Chad Gable on his first show. But the Mexican destroyer thing, I don't know. I mean, it was perfectly executed, and Gable, you're right, Gable sold it tremendously, and then it was a 2 count, and that's just one of my pet peeves. And it's not, I mean, all wrestling companies do that now. WWE doesn't do it as much as AEW does, but WWE still does it way too often, where somebody will hit a move like that, and whoever takes it sells it like, oh shit, they're dead, you know, 1-2 kick out. And I'm like, all right, I mean, if you're gonna have Penta win the match anyway, and he really wants to do that move, why not just make that the finish, or at least have Chad get his foot on the rope or something, like to kick out of it. It's just like, it's the first time, it's his first match. It's the first time we've ever seen him do it. It looks great, as goofy of a move as it is. Like, it's a ridiculous move, but the way they pulled it off, it looked great and it looked devastating.
Yeah.
And the match goes on for like 5 minutes afterwards. It doesn't really, it's like, in one of the things that always used to make me roll my eyes because I don't regularly watch AEW anymore, but when I was regularly watching it, I would hate it when Mark Quinn from the Private Party, he has a beautiful shooting star press, and he did it almost every match. It was so gorgeous and it was perfect, and he hit it right on the money every time. Never beat a single guy with it. And I was like, what is the point of having him do this incredible move that, and then and go for the pin, and the guy always kicks out? You know, so that's just one of my pet peeves about. Yeah,
I totally agree. There's the Undertaker has actually been on a couple of he's got his own podcast now, but I know that he was on quite a few podcasts where he talks about how there's nobody that has real finishers anymore. You know, like nobody used to kick out of the tombstone. But and nobody even remember the DDT, like Jake the Snake.
Oh
DDT.
Yeah,
like
that was death.
Like, that's
nobody
a light
ever
move.
kicked out of that.
You know, that's a light attack now. You know, so,
I mean,
shows you where we are.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, like, things change and wrestling evolves just like any other art form, but it is a little like, one of the things that I will always respect Kenny Omega for, even though his general wrestling style is often not to my taste, because he just goes so over the top all the time. It's like he's an incredible athlete, but it's like every match he has to do every move he's ever seen. And it's just like, God, I would love for Kenny Omega to just do like an 8-minute TV match, but like everything's got to be like the most epic thing you've ever seen. But Kenny is one of the only major wrestlers who protects his finish. Like, when he gets that one-winged angel, nobody kicks out of that. And that's the way that's how I wish like every finish should be. Like the first time somebody could, I loved one of my favorite finishes when I was watching AEW was Darby Allin's coffin drop. I love that move. It's a unique move. It's relatively simple. It seems relatively safe, but it looks awesome. And the first time somebody kicked out of that, my heart broke. I was like, what are you doing? Don't ever let anybody kick out of that. Like, if you want to do it and not have someone and not have that not be the end of the match, just tell them to move. Like, it's okay to miss it, but if you hit it, don't ever let anybody kick out of that. And, you know, but now it's just like, oh, it's like what happened to the stunner.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, and so, I mean, I kind of have to blame Steve Austin and The Rock for this a little bit, because they were the ones that popularized that, of when they would have their epic clashes. You know, the first stunner never was the finish. Like, Steve would hit the first stunner like 15 minutes in, and The Rock would kick out. And at first it was like, okay, it's Austin versus The Rock. It's like a big match, and The Rock is a bad dude, so of course he can kick out of it. But then it started happening more and more. And it's just like, remember when the stunner was a finish? Remember when Steve would hit the stunner and that was it?
Yeah.
What happened to that, you know?
Well, it's like back in the day, wrestlers had like an almost finisher and a finisher. Like The Rock had like the people's elbow and the rock bottom. Like people would kick out of the people's elbow, but if you got hit with the rock bottom, it was probably over. But
that was it. Yeah. Or like when Kurt Angle had the 2 stages of the ankle lock, you know, when he started grapevining the leg. If like the guy didn't tap out at first, or if it was like a big, like a main event match on a pay-per-view, he would go down on it and grapevine the leg, and then it was over. Then like the guy had to tap out, and you know, stuff like that. Like you have an ultimate finisher where like that's it. Like nobody ever gets up. I wish finishers were more protected.
Yeah, as do I, my friend. So what would your grade compared to the first week of Raw? Obviously, this Raw was not going to be a pseudo PLE, which is what the first week of Raw was. I thought that this was more like what we are going to see every week. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this was a big step down? Do you think that this was, you know, expected? What do you think?
Oh, no. I mean, it might... People might perceive it as a step down just because there weren't so many celebrities and legends there. But like you said, I mean, this is what the show is going to be. You know, we're not going to have like, you know, The Rock and The Undertaker showing up, like every week. Like that's just it's Raw. It's the
Mhm.
same show that it was a few weeks ago. It's just now it's on Netflix, and this is how it's going to be. So no, as a wrestling show, I actually like this week better. I liked the first episode. I loved how big time it felt. Like they really did a good job of making that first Netflix show feel like a big deal. And the arena looked great and the crowd was awesome. And yeah, there was, all of the legends and the celebrities. It really felt, like you said, it felt like a PLE. It felt like a WrestleMania type atmosphere. But this week there was more wrestling. They weren't stopping every 5 minutes to remind us that they were on Netflix. Like that was something that kind of got on my nerves. I was like, yeah, they're like, we're on Netflix. Isn't this amazing? I'm like, yeah, okay, it's cool, but relax, or they did this weird thing in the first episode where it's like they talked about it like nobody had ever seen wrestling before. Like Triple H, even he's like, finally the world can see us. I'm like, this shit has been pretty popular for a while. I mean, yeah, like not to undersell the Netflix thing. Having the show be live on Netflix is a big deal, but it's like people have been watching it before this. It's, but no, so there wasn't any of that this week. It was more a typical Raw show. And, like even though none of the matches like were blow away amazing, I thought, there wasn't a bad match. I thought the Punk and Rollins and McIntyre promo to start with was pretty good. I thought the Gunther and Jey Uso promo was pretty good. I love Gunther. So yeah, overall, I thought it was a better show. Speaking as a wrestling fan, I thought it was a better show than last week.
They had 5 matches in 2.5 hours last night, and they did 4 matches in 3 hours the first night. So that kind of tells you something right there. And I agree. I think the matches were better. The one real gripe I had with the first show was that all the faces won. And
yeah,
I think that was very much by design, keep everything positive and that's not a real wrestling show. So but no, I agree with you. I think the wrestling was definitely better. My favorite match, like I said, was the one that let it off. So that really got one for me. And I thought, for them to show like this is the standard, this is what you're going to see every week. I think it was a good showing. Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us today, Steve. I really appreciate your time. Again, if you want to check out Steve, and I very much think you should, he has his own channel on YouTube. I'm going to link it down below. Steve, is there anything you'd like to say before you go?
No, just thanks again for having me on, and enjoy watching wrestling, everybody.
Yeah, hopefully we can have you on again. Thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciate it. And everybody else, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week on the Fallout Show. Thanks, guys.